Israel took a preemptive strike against Iran, something that we were expecting that something would happen. And of course, it developed overnight in a pretty big way. We've all been watching the news as they have targeted some of the sites that they believe were being developed for enrichment of whether it was nuclear war or nuclear bombs or whatever it may be. They were getting to the point of no return. And Israel felt like it is time. Now, America put out a statement saying, hey, this isn't our war to fight. But also, President Trump responded with a pretty strong message of support without fully saying the U.S. is going to get involved, other than helping out where needed. So this is the breaking news, obviously, that's still happening. A lot of footage is coming out, a lot of very interesting footage that is being released, whether we are actually seeing a lot more of how Israel has conducted a lot of this. And it's interesting because you first your stomach sinks in some ways because you never want to see war. You never want to see, and like I said, it kind of evokes back to how we all felt in March of 2003, if you were alive then, if you're watching the news, watching the bombing that started in Iraq. And sure, at that moment, a lot of us were very excited that we were fighting back against terror on the heels of September 11th. However, when you look back at it now, there's a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of mixed feelings. And I think that's going to be true for this as well, because war always comes with consequences. War always comes with death and destruction, and that's really unfortunate. It's really sad, but they are targeting, it seems like very strategically targeting, not only these sites, but also a lot of the leadership.
This was one of the most spectacular strikes that I've seen in all the years of following Israel, even America's wars, and even when you look at the things that have happened in Ukraine. Until today, the drone operation that Ukraine did against Russia was one of the most incredible intelligence things I think anyone had ever seen. This strike had over 200 Israeli aircraft striking over 100 targets, including the nuclear enrichment sites, as well as taking out top military leaders. They basically wiped out the head of the IRGC, that's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, as well as other top military leaders in the army. And they did this with precision strikes, many times taking them out in their penthouse apartments by very surgically putting bombs where they needed to be to minimize civilian casualties. But it was impressive. It was broad in scope. It is not over. But what we have seen now is Iran is in disarray. They have lost their top military leadership. They've also lost their ability to defend Tehran against airstrikes because the air defense systems were taken out by Mossad right before the strike happened.
Rick, this is a big moment here, and I think, look, there's people who voted for President Trump who look at this and say, hey, we voted for no wars and no more conflict. But at this moment, I mean, America is not directly involved. But for those people who are concerned about that, I wanted to get your thoughts on these specific strikes that are happening.
Well, look, Donald Trump has been very clear. He's also an extreme realist. And what he has been saying for the last 60 days to Iran is, let's talk. He's been offering carrots to say, come to the table and let's talk. We want to make sure that we are communicating directly. We want to have a peaceful resolution. But when Israel calls and says we're threatened, it's our neighborhood, and we're the target of Iran more than anyone else, it doesn't really matter what the United States is going to say in response, because Israel is a sovereign nation. They coordinate with their great ally, America, in certain ways. But Marco Rubio and President Trump made it clear that this was unilateral action. This was the actions of the Israelis, and it was not the action of America. And that we continue, Donald Trump continues in the midst of all of this to be a realist, to say, look, there's still a second chance here. You've got a lot of dead leaders. You have been funding terrorism. Why don't we talk about this issue? Why don't we try to come to some sort of a diplomatic solution? So I still see President Trump doing exactly what President Trump does best, which is to give people an off-ramp, to give countries an off-ramp. They're dealing with the consequences that Israel has put forward. And certainly the United States knew what was going to happen, but this was unilateral action. And now President Trump comes in and says, I continue to be the president for peace. I want to talk about peace. You just have got to take the talks.
My dad, Jay Sekulow, is joining us live, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Dad, I'll just let you take it a bit from here to get your feedback of all that's been going on in the last 15 hours or so.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to understand, and it kind of underscores what Rick was saying as well, and that this was not a one-off. This was not just thought of. The approach that the Israeli government, Benjamin Netanyahu, who worked very, very closely, has been planned for years. So the threat of a nuclear Iran is not new. What was new is their capability had reached a point basically of no return. If you didn't act now, you would have an Iran with a nuclear weapon. Now, that would destabilize, of course, the Middle East, but it would also put all of us, including the United States, at tremendous risk. Risk not from a bomb or a weapon, although they are quite capable of trying to attack U.S. interests in the Middle East. But also, you got to realize something. Then it could affect the world distribution of oil. I mean, on and on it goes. But you could not have a situation where Iran would get a nuclear weapon. It's a theocracy. It's a theocracy based on an attempt or a worldview that they have that Israel is the little Satan and the United States is the big Satan. So we can't ignore that. So this is not one of these situations, and I want to talk to some of my conservative friends who are worried about U.S. involvement. Well, so far the U.S. hasn't done anything per se. That doesn't mean they won't. The president was very clear with Iran. They had 60 days to get to the table and get a deal done. They didn't do it, and on the 61st day, Israel attacked. That should say a lot. Now, we also talked about, and Rick just mentioned this, we are very uniquely positioned at the American Center for Law and Justice. Jeff Balaban, our senior counsel, who's based out of our office in Jerusalem. Logan, as you said, it's an American Center for Law and Justice office. It's not an Israeli center. It's an American Center for Law and Justice. We have been involved in the most strategic and important issues in the Middle East going back decades. This is where I have to say that the ACLJ is uniquely positioned because, remember, I have been to the International Criminal Court in The Hague twice, once on Israel's behalf, once on the United States' behalf. We were successful, but this takes real effort. So I think we're looking at a new world order of sorts, not in the sense of apocalyptic, but that the Iranian regime, I think you're going to see regime change at the end of this because the Iranian people, especially the people under 50, want freedom and liberty. They had it before. They want it again. So I'm actually optimistic that this latest action is going to result in a reshaping in the Middle East that will be very, very positive.
Rick, when you look at what Israel carried out, this will be studied, I'm sure, by militaries around the world for strategy. But the sheer scope of what they were able to pull off, both with Mossad on the ground, the reports are, with drone capabilities and targeted precision missiles to take out the air defenses of Tehran before the Israeli jets got there, and then being able to take out so many leaders at the same time of destroying many of these nuclear facilities. This was one of the most impressive operations that definitely in our lifetime, maybe in history, because of the technology that's available now. What was your take on when you saw this as it was unfolding?
Well, certainly you're correct that it was deep and detailed. I want to be a little bit careful. I was the former DNI, but the point is well taken that this operation was done from inside Iran by the Israelis. And so it would lead one to say, how long have they been inside? What were they doing? And what is that strategy? But it was done from the inside. And again, this was unilateral action from Israel. This was something that the president was trying to avoid, President Trump. And what we try to tell every single country that we're having conflict with is that there is a path for talks. We want to do diplomacy. This is a president who doesn't start conflicts, and he didn't start this conflict.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Sekulow program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.